It's over. The 2024 NFL season is in the books. 40-14. A beatdown.
It was 40-22.
22. Well, that didn't count at the end. That was against their backups. Yeah, 40-22. She's right. I have the score right here. This was, 40-6 at one point?
It was it 24-0? Was it 27-0 at one point in the third quarter?
31-0 at one point. I lost track. I mean, this was so bad. Let me just start with this. Montana never got run out of the building the way Mahomes just got run out of the building. Brady, who announced this game, never got run out of the building the way that Mahomes got run out of the building. This is legacy damaging for the Chiefs. I can't see anything other way to put it. They lost in the Super Bowl 31-9 in 2020, right after we first met, and they lose in this one 40-22. I'll get the score right this time. 40-22. I mean, this was not competitive. This was everything that we thought would happen to the Chiefs at some point this postseason because they just weren't that good over the course of the season. And today they got one call early on the pass interference.
But that was really it. That was really all. That was all the bones that they were thrown. All the freebies. All the freebies.
That it ended there. I'm going to get this up on the screen. This was the team tier chart. I'll get this big for you so you can see it on the screen. This was the one that we had referred to all season long. You want it to be further to the right as far as offensive performance and further up as far as defensive performance goes. So the Eagles were up here. This was an elite team. The Chiefs they were pretenders throughout a lot of this season. And
they got a lot of help.
They got a lot of help.
And it showed tonight.
I think that's really the only fair takeaway from something like this on when you watch just how far out the Philadelphia Eagles got early in this game from the Chiefs. They couldn't block, right? It was the Eagles defensive line that we just sack after sack.
Yeah, I think the Eagles defense completely just took control of the game. And then Jalen Hurts had those opportunities that the defense gave him and, turned those possessions into points. The Chiefs didn't. I mean, the Chiefs couldn't convert at all.
You've been watching this.
This isn't like this game or this season, this whole drama.
This whole 49ers saga over the course of the past several years.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah. I think you came aboard watching this team right when the first time we were talking during a Super Bowl was during the Chiefs getting beat by Tom Brady, 31-9.
Mm-hmm.
That offseason, the 49ers invested heavily in their offensive line. Trent Williams, they signed him in the middle of the night to that big contract. They signed Alex Mack. They saw what the Chiefs had been beaten by. They saw that the Chiefs had been beaten by a really, really good defensive line. And they said, we got to make the offensive line and the defensive line better. The Eagles dominated today with their defensive line, and their offensive line also protected Jalen Hurts.
It wasn't even a competition.
It wasn't.
At no point during this game did I think, ooh, this is competitive.
No, I didn't. The very first drive is that they kept the Chiefs in the game artificially with the fourth down penalty, right? That was pass interference, should not have been a flag. Mm-hmm. Everybody that was commentating the game agreed.
Yeah, that was when he pushed his face mask, right? Yeah, it wasn't a full-on grab, but there was some contact. So, I mean, even Tom Brady said that's a little
Troy Aikman announces
light.
Some of these games. He works for ESPN. He worked for, when the Niners and the Cowboys played back in the 90s and those epic games. Michael Irvin and Deion Sanders would go at it in that NFC Championship game, and both guys are grabbing each other's jerseys, contact everywhere. The officials let them play. The officials did not say, hey, we're going to throw a flag in the biggest game of the season. We're going to let the players determine what happens.
I do think some of the penalties have become a little bit more fluffy over the past, definitely over the past 2 to 3 years, but especially the past year. And I think that may also be in part to the new kickoff rule. I mean, during the regular season, it was like, don't breathe on Mahomes or you'll get a roughing the passer flag immediately. But today, the passer was roughed tonight.
Today he was roughed. He was sacked multiple times.
He was sacked. Was it 6 or 7? 7 was the record for Super Bowls, and I know they hit at least 6.
Well, let's add it up right here. 2.5 for Josh Sweat, 2 for Williams, 1 for Davis, and a half a sack for Hunt. So
5.5?
You do math better than me. So 3, 5.5. No, that's 6. That's 6.
Oh, 6. Okay.
Sure. And what was 7 2020 when Mahomes went against the Bucks?
I don't know. I just remember them saying that 7 was the record for a Super Bowl.
And then the very last one, where he fumbled, it was roughing the passer. And I thought it was poetic justice that the officials did not throw a penalty, because the reason that Mahomes was in this Super Bowl was because they threw bad roughing the passer flags. So that one should have been roughing the passer, but the officials said, we're not going to help out anymore.
Look, I think the NFL is smart. I think they're aware of how people feel and what the sentiments are. I mean, it's not really hard to go get on X, Twitter, any sort of social media and understand how fans feel about this matchup. And I think a lot of fans were really frustrated to see a Chiefs appearance in the Super Bowl again. I mean, I think a Commanders-Eagles Super Bowl or a Bills-Eagles Super Bowl would have drawn bigger crowds, would have been more entertaining. And it seems like had there been any sort of collusion going on between the referees and the Chiefs, we don't have any of that confirmed. It's all speculative. It's all sus, as the kids say, which is short for suspicious.
Suspect.
Yeah, suspect. So it's all very sus. I mean, if any of that had been going on, it could have been very well that the NFL just told the refs, call it how it is. I mean, it kind of feels like the Chiefs, got stood up by the refs, like for a wedding, not just like a date, but it's like a wedding date.
And there was that one call early, and then they got nothing after that. There even was a bad call against the Chiefs on one of the Eagles drives. Remember the personal foul that extended one of the drives? I think that made it.
And that was first quarter. That was still pretty early on. And we went, oh.
All I know, we don't know if there's conspiracy
no idea.
Or subconscious bias that can happen too. Patrick Mahomes is also really good at gaming the system. He knows when to slide, when not to slide. The rules have gotten really soft.
Mm-hmm.
All this
Fluffy.
And all that. But this is what we can say for sure, that it was not a good look for the league. The Chiefs playoff games to get to the Super Bowl were not a good look for the league. Anybody that was unbiased, that had 2 eyes and a brain, could say that doesn't look good. Josh Allen crossed the first down line.
If I'm at the NFL HQ in New York, I'm thinking to myself, I do not want to deal with any sort of fan backlash if the Chiefs do win this Super Bowl.
So you call it fair. And maybe they're trying to call it fair before. Mahomes was gaming the system.
And, it felt like the second and third quarters, there were hardly any flags, which was very surprising to me.
They just kind of let it play. The
game happened. It was kind of nice.
Anyway, on an even playing field, today was a beatdown of epic proportions. 2 years ago, the Eagles and the Chiefs played, and they played on the field in Arizona that didn't have good footing. And the Eagles had a good pass rush back then, but they blamed the field. They said, we couldn't get our footing. Pass rush didn't work. 34-31, Chiefs come back and win. Today, the pass rush absolutely dominated, but it wasn't the same Eagles pass rush. This team went to hell and back over the past 2 years. Mm-hmm. 2 years ago when they went and they lost to the Chiefs, that was the game after they beat the 49ers where Brock Purdy got hurt.
Yeah, that was 2022.
Yeah, that was 2022. And they since didn't re-sign Javon Hargrave. He went to the 49ers. They they don't have Ndamukong Suh, Hassan Reddick, who hurt Brock Purdy. They basically went to the University of Georgia in Athens, where the fans parked.
Give us all of your
defensive linemen, and they
defensive or offensive?
Defensive line.
Okay.
Yeah. And they completely retooled the defensive line with Georgia guys and some other guys. They went last year. We saw how bad they were, right? They were one of the worst defenses in the league. 49ers throttled them. And then they did this to Mahomes. So in just 2 years,
dismantling completely of the Chiefs.
In 1 year, worse the first turnaround. In 2 years, a complete revitalization of the defensive line. Mm-hmm. I think that's a blueprint for the 49ers, who ended this season just horrifically bad on defense. So follow what the Eagles did. And they've got this guy, Margo, named Vic Fangio, their defensive coordinator. He used to be the defensive coordinator of the 49ers. Guess what? The Eagles got a new defensive coordinator. Guess what the 49ers just did?
We got a new defensive coordinator.
Robert Saleh. So that's what the 49ers are going to have to do next year. One other thing you mentioned, Jalen Hurts. I think he went from overrated a couple years ago. I think people were giving him too much hype to underrated. He was the better quarterback on the field today.
Well, I think he, by leaps and bounds. I mean, that's not even a question. He read the defense schemes. He knew exactly how. I mean, he just
Played within himself.
Played so well.
Yeah, played within himself.
But, there's some humility that comes with, a Super Bowl appearance and then a loss and, having to reset and then coming back a few years later. You appreciate it more. You've got, a little bit more miles on the car and, you're so much more thankful to be there. I think he really did. And, he was an Alabama quarterback. And so I have every reason to be like, oh, we don't really like Jalen Hurts. But
Auburn girl.
What can you do? Sorry. We're a basketball school now.
You guys do have a good basketball team.
Number one.
Seems like the SEC right now is in a tough time with the NIL, but we could.
Everyone's in a tough time with the NFL NIL,
except for the schools that have the oil money.
Yeah, unless you're Texas or Ohio State
and the big alumni bases.
Yeah,
those schools are all doing really well. Anyway, Mahomes. He showed up wearing green to the Super Bowl. He showed up how arrogant, right? He shows up wearing Eagles green as if to say, I'm going to be the owner of the Eagles. I thought it was fitting because he threw more passes to the Eagles than he did to the Chiefs today. I thought the outfit worked.
Hang it in the Louvre.
If Brock Purdy played a game as bad as Patrick Mahomes played today on the biggest stage of them all in the Super Bowl, he would never be forgiven for it. I'm just looking for a lack of bias. People need to treat Mahomes the same way they treat other quarterbacks.
Well, I think the refs did that today.
Well, that and also, this was the same. The 49ers struggled with pass protection in Super Bowl 54. The 49ers struggled with pass protection on the interior last year in Las Vegas. And, you're going to struggle as a quarterback at times if you can't block for him. Behold what happened to Patrick Mahomes when they couldn't block for him.
They just tore him apart.
He's not different than all these other guys. You have to have a team to win and to succeed.
Yeah.
So that, to me, just watching this was vindicating for people who support team football instead of worshiping one player.
That's fair.
Because you saw the whole unit. Now, let me put a name on the screen right here. This is going to make you smile.
I have no idea what he's about to put. Oh, yeah.
He was awesome today. How many kicks did he make?
Here's the thing. Jake Elliott has always been a very good kicker.
4 of 4.
Yeah. And I would say it's 4 of 4, but he actually really did kick a couple extra times because they threw down flags, I think, on 2, maybe 3 of the field goal attempts that he had. And they weren't extra points. They were actual 3-point kicks. And he still drilled them every time.
And they moved him back 5 yards.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, it was flags that, made the kick harder, and he still made it happen. One went from a 43 to a 48 yarder, and he still drilled it.
The 49ers need that. That's obviously a point of needed improvement entering this offseason. So we talk about the blueprint for the 49ers. Well, you got to invest in the defensive line, offensive line. I think it's clear that Brock Purdy is the guy. I mean, he did what he did with worse last season for the 49ers, both O-line and D-line, but also that kicker position, so important in this football game. Earlier today, we had some 49ers news. Deebo Samuel apparently requested a trade during his exit interview. So I'm going to discuss that here. This is a pre-recorded video here from the mountains, and then we'll be back with you to answer some questions about the Super Bowl. Here from the Sierra Nevada, San Francisco has granted Deebo Samuel and his agent, Tory Dandy, permission to seek a trade. According to Adam Schefter, Deebo Samuel went into his exit meeting and he said it was a really tough conversation with Kyle Shanahan, but he requested the trade. Remember, Deebo's usage went down last season. He wasn't happy about it. He went to social media before that game against the Rams about it. Then the 49ers force-fed Deebo Samuel and he dropped what could have been a winning touchdown pass. It just wasn't a pretty season for Deebo Samuel. Started with an injury, continued with hospitalization for pneumonia. A few days ago, he's wearing A.J. Brown's Eagles jersey at Super Bowl Radio Row. So I think that we saw the writing on the wall, but now we have it from the horse's mouth that this is something that probably is going to happen. So how is this going to affect the 49ers? Well, March 22nd is the inflection point. On March 22nd, the 49ers owe Deebo Samuel a $15.4 million option bonus, which prorates over 5 years against the salary cap at $3.086 million. You would think that the 49ers would want to make a move before March 22nd, so they don't owe that money. You have to look at salary cap space in a large reservoir that goes connect season to season. It's my sync theory. One sync is connected to the next sync, 2025 to 2026. So if you can save that 15.4 million, if you could get off the hook for that 15.4 million, you're 15.4 million richer throughout the whole pool. And with unused salary cap space carrying over from season to season, that obviously has an impact on paying Brock Purdy, on filling out a roster around Brock Purdy. And that's where the main point of all this lies. Build the best receiving core for Brock Purdy. Deebo Samuel's been a fantastic weapon for the 49ers. 2021, that was before Purdy was around, but that was a sensational all-pro season for Deebo Samuel that earned him the contract which he's currently playing on. It's been restructured a few times, so that makes things a little bit more complicated. But Deebo, the bulldozer from 2019 all the way through 2023, plus weapon for the 49ers. Purdy has transitioned this offense into more of an intermediate to downfield push where they need separation. They need, X receiver type timing downfield. Guys like Brandon Ayuk and Jawan Jennings have been perfect fits. They think that Ricky Pearsall, the rookie, when they drafted him last year in the first round, that would be the next step toward a fit that could potentially replace somebody like Deebo Samuel down the road. Those are the types of receivers that fit really well with Purdy. Deebo Samuel has been good with Brock Purdy, but only when other guys are setting up the table for separation, right? When Brandon Ayuk has been healthy, when Christian McCaffrey's been out there, Ricky Pearsall late in the season last year, I think his emergence helped Deebo Samuel close the season a little bit better than he started it. But Deebo Samuel is not the marquee featured separator that the 49ers ideally would like to pair with Brock Purdy for the long term. Somebody like Devontae Adams, who was part of the rumor mill yesterday, who's going to be part of the rumor mill moving forward, would be a better fit there. Or the 49ers can just roll with what they have, minus Deebo Samuel, and have Ricky Pearsall emerge into that new role. Either way, they finished dead last in the NFL last season in average yards of separation at the time of catch or incompletion. And that was with Deebo Samuel playing a more featured role with other guys hurt. So that's where the 49ers have to get better. There's also the concern of, he's been the Swiss Army knife that can also run the football for San Francisco. Well, he was down to 3.2 yards per carry last year. A lot of it probably had to do with the lack of spacing on the field. Kyle Shanahan's down year, the injuries elsewhere, and Deebo's injuries. But obviously the element of surprise, the different differentiation that led Deebo Samuel to be this lethal rusher was not there anymore last season. So it's all part of this evolution of the 49ers offense, which obviously is seeing the deck chairs being rearranged around the centerpiece, Brock Purdy, whose camp is in talks with the 49ers now regarding a new contract. The 49ers have restructured Deebo Samuel's contract several times. That is also just rearranging deck chairs. Guaranteed money they were already going to pay him has been converted to signing an option bonus. And it's been pushed forward so the 49ers don't have to pay as much on the cap in the near term. They pay it later when the salary cap is higher. The team has done a great job surfing the salary cap wave there. In this case, the impact of that is that if they do trade him, there's about $31.5 million of signing bonus and option bonus money that's already been paid out to Deebo Samuel that would have to hit the salary cap at some point. If it's after June 1st, part of it doesn't hit till next year. But if it's before June 1st, $31.5 million of that dead money has to hit in 2025. The good news is the 49ers have $45 million in space this year. And they would save, the $15.4 million if they traded Deebo Samuel before that March 22nd date. So they have plenty of room to absorb the dead money hit now. And they would ultimately, because they already have to pay that dead money over the course of any time, they would actually save the $15.4 million. It's really important to view the salary cap in terms of the larger reservoir. A lot of people are going to talk about dead money. Oh my God, $31.5 million. That's going to hit the books no matter what. And unused salary cap space carries over from season to season. So you've got to think in terms of a 5-year plan. You've got to think in terms of, okay, where's Brock Purdy's contract going to have the biggest cap hits? Where's the supporting cast going to have the biggest cap hits? Where can we shoulder the Deebo Samuel dead money since it's going to hit regardless? I actually think they've cleared up enough room to have it hit now, which makes a trade feasible. The question then is, since Deebo's owed $15.4 million on the option bonus plus the veteran minimum base salary of 1.2 million. So you could add that up to what, 16.8, 17 million. Is he worth about 17 million for 1 year before we talk about a potential extension with a new team? Is he worth that for a new team? Will a new team say, hey, we want to trade for Deebo Samuel's contract? He's worth at least 17 million for us for this season. That is where a trade market is defined. If that exists, there's a trade market there for Deebo Samuel. If somebody's willing to send over a 3rd round pick for that, I think the 49ers would jump on it. Maybe it's a 5th round pick that's a conditional pick that can move up to a 3rd rounder. That may also be something that the 49ers are willing to do, since Deebo Samuel did request this trade and since the 49ers are expected to oblige it. So we'll see what the price ends up being, but it is very likely that the 49ers trade Deebo Samuel. That is his contractual situation. San Francisco can shoulder the dead money and save $15.4 million of that option bonus, which kicks in on March 22nd. So consider that the important inflection date, March 22nd, 2025, when the $15.4 million option bonus kicks in for Deebo Samuel. This looks like it's going to be the end of an era. The 49ers discovered Deebo in 2019. He was at the Senior Bowl where they were coaching, right? There was the Mobile to Miami cycle in 2019. Impressed as hell by Deebo Samuel. Came onto the scene with a splash in 2019. Dual threat. I mean, the yards after contact for Deebo Samuel set NFL records. But things change. Situations change. Salary cap situations change. And the 49ers, especially with what Deebo Samuel told Kyle Shanahan in that exit interview, it looks like the optimal path moving forward is a trade of Deebo Samuel. All right. That was the Deebo discussion a little bit earlier today. So what a day. The Super Bowl Super Bowl Sunday starts with us talking Deebo Samuel trade request. We also found out that Aaron Rodgers is likely going to be gone from the New York Jets alongside Devontae Adams. That was yesterday's news.
And they're like a package deal-ish.
It seems like they might be. I mean, they were a package deal when Adams got traded over to the Jets this year.
Okay.
They were apart for that awkward time when Adams went to the Raiders. And Rodgers was the Packers, then went to the Jets. So we got a lot of NFL news that's just going to be
trickling in,
maybe gushing in at this point. But then we had the Super Bowl where, I'm going to go back to this. This was a beatdown of epic proportions. I think that legacy-wise, this really hurts the Chiefs' dynasty in their comparison to the great 49ers teams, the great Steelers teams, the great Cowboys teams, the great Patriots teams, because those teams did not show up to a Super Bowl, to the biggest game that there is, and get destroyed. And that has now happened to Patrick Mahomes twice.
Well, didn't the Patriots? They were like the Patriots and the Falcons were in a Super Bowl, and at halftime it was like 3-28. The Falcons were up. The Falcons blew a huge lead. Tom Brady came back and won that. I think that was maybe his last game as a
So it's
Patriot.
Possible to come back, but Patrick Mahomes wasn't able to do it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's possible to make a comeback, but not
against that defense today. They were playing well.
That defense, every single one of them woke up and was having one of the best days of their lives.
And it's a really, I think, a blueprint for what the 49ers can try to do moving forward. They've got good players. They need to add good players. Give a lot of credit to Howie Roseman for building that Philadelphia defense. But how about the broadcast? You had some thoughts today. We heard Tom Brady.
I always have thoughts.
So Tom Brady.
Whether or not I should share them is another thing.
Well, now you have to share your thoughts. This is where we're at now. But here's my quick thought to lead into yours. Yeah, we're going to bring up the chat to talk here.
I love the interaction.
We don't have the big monitor today, which is too bad. But the Tom Brady, I get it, because
as an announcer,
he played. I get it, and he lets you know at every single juncture that he played.
Every single one.
Tom Brady today had to let us know that I played in 10 Super Bowls. I didn't realize it was that many. That's a lot. That credit to Tom Brady, 10 Super Bowls. But what did you think of him as an announcer in his 11th Super Bowl?
So I think that at the beginning of this season, he was kind of unpolished, like not that great. And I think he has gotten a lot better. So credit to him for, doing the work and progressing in that new role. It's got to be completely different to go from in the middle of the action NFL QB to now you're just commentating on it and explaining it to the masses and in a sense dumbing it down for people for an entertainment perspective. It did bother me. I don't know if anybody else felt this way, but he kept calling Mahomes like Patrick. He would say like Patrick First this and like Patrick that. And I'm not like a big SpongeBob person, but every time he said like, oh, well, Patrick XYZ, all I could think about was Patrick Star. And maybe that's completely ridiculous and silly, but like, it wasn't that it was unprofessional, because I'm sure Brady and Patrick Mahomes have played against each other, right?
Brady beat Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl in 2020.
Yeah. Okay. So like, I get that, they're contemporaries and maybe in a sense like colleagues because they've played against each other on a really large stage in the biggest game that you possibly can play in the NFL. But I'm like, dude, you're not a quarterback right now. Like, we don't need you to be like QB Tom Brady. I need you to be like announcing Tom Brady. And so I just like hearing like Patrick over, I was like, okay, well, I don't know. I just thought it was It was very NBA casual. It was just he made it very casual.
Well, it's a little NBA like, and it's like,
because I don't want to say it was unprofessional.
LeBron has the ball. Steph has the ball. Oh, there's Draymond. In the NBA, everybody calls each other by their first name. We're not used to it in the NFL.
I just didn't love it. I was like, because you're so used to hearing Mahomes.
And today we heard Patrick. But we also saw Brady's, I made this big so you could see it. I know the screen is smaller. Brady's epic wristwatch flex. I like my watch better than Brady's.
You just gaudy. Put that up so you could show your watch.
I did. But are you going to take any credit?
Yeah, I take credit for it every time. It's great. Brady looked like he was wearing a block of gold on his wrist. It was really kind of ostentatious.
That was a Tom Brady watch. It was a watch of somebody who was at his 11th Super Bowl.
Yes, as one does.
10 as an player and 1 as an announcer.
Yes.
So let's get to some of these other comments. How good is your vision? Because this screen is really small. People.
I see Eric Gomes in the chat.
Eric Gomes is your biggest supporter. Yeah. So if you guys have any comments or questions about the Super Bowl, again, let's go back to this really quickly. This is what I want to talk about. A Super Bowl beatdown of epic proportions. It never happened to Montana. It never happened to Brady. We could talk about the blueprint for the 49ers moving forward. We talk about the fact that Mahomes was no longer protected once the game was out of hand. I think this is everything that a lot of 49ers fans wanted to see. But this is going to be a Super Bowl Q&A. We are opening it up now.
I think before we get to questions, and maybe I'm being a little bullying here, but I want to talk about the Super Bowl as a production. Were people entertained? Did people enjoy it? Were you excited to watch it? Did you, I mean, for me, I was so unexcited to watch this Super Bowl. I thought, I don't like the Eagles. I don't like the Chiefs. I was just, kind of like looking at my phone. I'm like, whatever. Like, I really don't care about either of these teams. But then Mahomes started getting sacked. And so, that was interesting. And then I will say some of the commercials were pretty well done. It wasn't a total flop this year, as far as that front is concerned. But it to me, as somebody who completely abhors the Chiefs, I was much more entertained as the game progressed.
We're going to watch the view counts just skyrocket whenever you say something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like it was just like vengeance is so sweet, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like the Eagles are up, and the Chiefs haven't scored yet, and then the Eagles were like, I think they got to 27. It was 27-0 at one point. It was either 24-0 or 27.
34-0, right? Yeah. It was 34-0 after that.
I don't know. I think that they had at least
I don't think they scored until it was 34-6.
They did not score. The Chiefs did not score until the end of the third quarter.
I think it was
until the end of the third quarter.
Do you want to bet
Bananas.
on this? I think the Chiefs didn't score until it was 34-0.
34-0. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jeff Cat.
So, and then they went for 2, and it was the saddest throw ever. It was that like incompletion to Kelsey. Kelsey looked washed. Somebody said that in the comment section. Travis Kelsey looked bad. Then they tried to show Taylor Swift. That didn't go well. Yeah. But I will vouch for what you were saying about yourself. We just hit 5,000 viewers. Awesome.
Woo. Welcome.
I will vouch for you. Early in the game, I'm like, are you tired? Or, you were just kind of like, oh.
No, I was bored.
Yeah, you were bored, and you said, I'm just not happy with this Super Bowl. I don't like either of these teams. You were like Christian McCaffrey.
It just felt forced.
I hope they both lose.
It just felt so forced. And I don't know. The Commanders were a dark horse. The Bills were on fire. Josh Allen won MVP. It was like, God, we had these really great teams. Like, I just think that would have been, even if we'd still had to watch the Eagles, had we watched, the Eagles and the Commanders or the Eagles and the Bills, I think there would have been more hype around the game. And maybe it's just me. I know we've been traveling a little bit here and there, but I didn't feel or see any hype over this Super Bowl. I mean, I did not get we're very social. I really didn't see a ton of friends throwing Super Bowl parties.
Outside of Philly and Kansas City, it was a tougher sell.
Yeah, I mean, people were kind of over it.
But I will say that after the little lull at the start, you picked up energy over the course of this game. And I think that's a testament to a dominant performance. You have to give the Eagles credit for
absolutely
everything that they did today. They didn't even run the ball well today, but they still throttled the Chiefs, which just goes to show you Kansas City picked one thing to stop, and they decently stopped it. Saquon didn't go off or anything. But Jalen Hurts was composed. He was really good. He was making throws, moving out of the pocket. And then we just got to go back to that defense.
They executed. They executed every time at every position at every point in the game. I mean, it was
overwhelmed. That defensive line.
Dominant. I have not seen, and I watch a lot of NFL games, guys, a lot for a 31-year-old female. It's just been a really hot minute since I have seen, a team living that rent free in another team's brain. I mean, the Chiefs were just
that's one thing.
They got smacked around.
That's one thing that Brady got wrong today. Brady was Patrick Mahomes, what a competitor. He doesn't flinch. He was flinching all game. It was 34-0 as he was flinching.
As those words left Brady's mouth, Mahomes got sacked.
And even when he wasn't sacked, he was missing throws. One 4th down. He thought that he was about to get sacked.
The ball was hitting the ground a lot with some of Mahomes' throws. I was really surprised to see that.
This game is not a kind mark on Patrick Mahomes' legacy because
or the Chiefs.
There was already controversy entering the game.
I seriously think the refs stood them up. I feel like it was a dinner. It was like a dinner date or it's not just a playoff game. It's the Super Bowl. And it's hey, let's go to a wedding together. And then the refs just did not show up and they were dressed to the nines, ready to go. And they just got left out in the cold.
Well, that's what happens, I guess.
When you have to play football?
When you
have to play real football?
I can go back to this. This Kansas City team was not that great this year. You see where
they weren't that great this year. And that's I think that's why so much of America and so many NFL teams, felt like we got cheated this Super Bowl. It's why are we watching the Chiefs again? And clearly, I think that the level of dominance of this Super Bowl game completely justifies that the Chiefs should not have been playing in it. And maybe that's a really hot take, but that is my humble opinion.
Well, the Chiefs certainly looked...
I think the Bills would have put up more points. I think the Commanders maybe even would have put up more points or a little bit more of a fight.
The Chiefs certainly looked like a team that didn't belong there today. Whenever it's 34-0, you are a team that doesn't belong on that field.
No, absolutely not.
I think, and you know what else this was an indictment of Buffalo's defense, because the way that Philadelphia was able to just scorch, other way around actually, Buffalo's defense against Kansas City. The way that Philadelphia was able to scorch Patrick Mahomes and that front,
they shut him down.
Buffalo was helpless against him. So we know Josh Allen is great, but it doesn't seem that Buffalo was the balanced team that we thought.
I think the key to destroying the Chiefs was all in the defense.
Well, let's go back to this.
Because here's the thing. If you completely can dismantle and fluster Patrick Mahomes in the way that the Eagles did, then the Chiefs defense is exhausted. I mean, what was the time of possession at the end of the game? I mean, I think it was I think the Eagles had the ball twice as much as the Chiefs did.
I'm going to look to see what it was over the whole game. I think we'll have those stats right here. And then I want to draw attention to the screen here.
The chart.
Here are the game stats. I think we'll have time of possession.
What was, time of possession?
37 minutes for the Eagles. That's insane.
And what did the Chiefs have?
23, 37 out of 60.
Yeah, that's insane.
So 37-23 is crazy.
Domination.
In the first half, I think the Chiefs only had one first down. We'll go through some of those stats in a bit. But again, back to this.
Hold on. I do think that there will be bumper stickers in Philly that say, honk if you sack Mahomes.
Well, everybody sacked Mahomes today. So.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So when we talk about defense needing to be good, that means higher up on the vertical axis. Look where Buffalo was. Buffalo might have had a world-beating offense, but the defense was pretty damn close to mediocre.
I would say that, but then you also have the Ravens and the Lions up there who kind of choked.
Those teams didn't make it. That's my point.
Yeah.
So to win the Super Bowl, you've got to be one of the top defenses. So the Eagles had both. The Eagles were far to the right and far up on the chart. The teams that got eliminated earlier, Tampa Bay, Washington, Detroit, Buffalo, Baltimore, those are all teams that had great offenses.
Weren't the Bengals in the wild card?
No, the Bengals didn't make it because their defense sucked.
Oh.
They didn't make it at all. Remember, they had to fight back.
Yeah. Because Denver got in.
All of these teams, these are all offense-forward teams. You see my cursor hovering over it. All these offense-forward teams didn't make it, didn't win. Kansas City, I would say, was an offense-forward team too, except their offense was worse than all these teams. But their defense also wasn't great this year. And Kansas City got beat by Philly, who's a good tier to 2 tiers better than them on the diagonal tier chart. So defense wins championships. That's the takeaway that we can take from this. Hot take. Defense wins championships.
What did you think of the announcing?
I miss Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on Fox.
Not Greg Olsen.
I think the best in the game. Well, Greg Olsen's really good, but I think the two best, like the best crew in the game, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. And they're on Monday Night Football now. They work for ESPN. You scoot a little bit more into the middle here.
Sorry.
You're off center. There you go. I think it's going to be better.
Can't be that. Did you have any favorite commercials?
The McConaughey commercial, I was really, really excited about.
Oh, the Uber Eats football's trying to get you to eat food.
We had liked the Christian McCaffrey commercial. They kind of set that one up with
all year.
The Jerry Rice Christian McCaffrey commercial. That was really. What was everybody's favorite commercial? Let's go. And Chris Schwab, say hi to Chris again. He said he was in Fresno or Clovis yesterday.
Shoot, we should have met you at the In-N-Out.
2 hours before we were at In-N-Out. Yeah, we didn't know that.
Man, In-N-Out's in California. It's like 49ers fan reunions. Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey was there, like literally, right? I mean, we saw him in line.
Yeah, and we saw Josh Allen in line today too.
Josh Allen was at China Peak skiing today. Yeah,
allegedly.
He said, "I hope Patrick Mahomes loses."
Yeah,
I
pretty
hope
much.
both teams lose. People are talking about the commercials. They're coming in here. Your favorite commercials? You could go ahead and put it in the comments.
Or
section.
like cringe commercials, like the Skechers Martha Stewart commercial. I didn't even know what to do with that. That was so strange and weird. Budweiser is always fantastic. I'm a big fan of a baby horse, always.
They say we got the Doritos one in Canada, so I guess different countries have different.
The Doritos one was great. The UFO, that was a really funny one.
What was the Budweiser one? Mike is saying it was cool.
The Budweiser one was where like a keg falls off of the big wagon, and there's this. He's not a foal. He's technically like a yearling, so he's like a little teenage adolescent Clydesdale horse, and he sees the one keg fall off the wagon and decides he's gonna like push it all the way to town,
so it was a
into the bar.
Their decades long.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're Budweiser, why would you get rid of the Clydesdales and the puppies? I mean, they usually do like labs.
It's an iconic. I mean, everybody tunes in.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Thinking they're going to see one of those Budweiser.
There are years where I am so uninterested in the Super Bowl that I am only watching it for the Budweiser commercials specifically, which is silly, but.
Well, yeah, we know you love the horses.
Yes,
so
of course.
That's always good.
I do think the Glenn Powell Goldilocks commercial with Dodge Ram was pretty hilarious and fantastic.
Martha Stewart trying to break dance early on.
Yeah, nobody needs to see Martha Stewart. Martha is full of so many wonderful capabilities. I'm just a little disappointed in that marketing team that put that together.
Back to the game really briefly. I'm going to zoom in on some of my notes here that I tweeted over the course of the game. It was insane. The first half, Margot, right here. The Chiefs averaged 1 yard per rush, 2.4 yards per pass attempt, 1.2 net yards per passing drop back, and 23 yards on 20 plays. 1 first down in the first half. In the first half,
insane.
This is a crazy stat because these stats sometimes don't include penalties. So if you included penalties when they had holding and they lost yardage, the Chiefs were averaging a loss of yardage every single time Patrick Mahomes dropped back the pass in the first half.
Wow.
So you cannot get beat this bad. You cannot get embarrassed like this and expect your legacy to be at the top of the heap in NFL history. I give the Chiefs a lot of credit for what they have won. Maybe not as much credit as some Chiefs fans will give them, because I do think that look at the first pass interference penalty, the A.J. Brown pass interference penalty. The George Kittle one doesn't happen in 2019. I think the 49ers win the Super Bowl. Other stuff could happen last season that broke in the Chiefs' favor. The Trent Williams hold, right, on the George Kittle play. 49ers would have won that Super Bowl. But still, the Chiefs have found a way to win Super Bowls, but they also have been run out of the stadium twice. And the greats don't get run out of the stadium on the biggest stage. Whether you think that's fair or not, I know that other quarterbacks have gotten beaten badly in the postseason earlier on. Once you get to the Super Bowl, you've got 2 weeks to prepare for it. Whether it's fair or not, you cannot get blown out in that circumstance. No, you don't live it down. You can't live that down.
It's an embarrassment of epic proportion. And I think what kind of irks me is the fact that the Chiefs were able to score like 2 touchdowns, pretty quickly before the game wrapped up in the fourth quarter against the backups of the Eagles. And, years down the road, when we look at the score, we'll say, oh, wow, 40, what was it, 42 to 20 or 40 to 20? Remind me of the score again. Sorry.
You're better than me. You corrected me at the start of the show. 40 to 22.
Yeah. You look at the score and you go, 40 to 22. Maybe that was semi-entertaining. The score doesn't indicate that the game was that much of a blowout, but it was.
If calls go in your favor more often than not, then the close games are going to go in your favor more often than not. But so the Chiefs did something that anybody who has any knowledge of statistics, even at a rudimentary level, would be appalled by. They won 17 straight games decided by 1 score or less. This league, the margins are tiny in this league. Mm-hmm. So to win 17 straight times, that's just a little bit more likely than getting heads 17 straight times on a heads or tail coin flip. It should,
very, very challenging.
Yeah, it should not happen 17 straight on an even playing field. That's how difficult it is.
So what do you think the next year looks like for the Chiefs? I mean, what do you,
the big question.
If you're Andy Reid and you're, ownership GM of the Chiefs, you have to look at yourself and say, wow, we had such a successful season, quote unquote, by the numbers, looking at the regular season, looking at the ending, wins and losses, but that Super Bowl was so embarrassing. So how do you reckon? I mean, where do you start? Do you make all these changes, or do you just kind of keep going along and, write it off as a fluke of some sort?
Do they even bounce back from this to get to another Super Bowl? I don't think that you can take that for granted. That this was a humiliating loss. I will give Kansas City credit that they came back from a bad loss against Brady in that Super Bowl 4 years ago. But I mean, teams have lost in much less spectacular fashion and never made it back to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So you can't everything is fleeting in this league.
Well, yeah. You have to have everything lined up.
Yes, everything has to line up. And this might have popped the Chiefs bubble. And we'll find out if it did.
Yes, they are no longer in Wonderland.
Wilson says we have to expect they'll be good again. I'm not saying that they won't be good, but making the Super Bowl takes 10 things to line up for you, some of which are out of your control. You have to be lucky in some aspects. Luck and skill are both necessary to get to this level. And losing the way that the Chiefs did, there's 2 ways to lose. You can lose the way that the 49ers did, and that is somebody literally plunges their hand into your chest, twists it, and rips your heart out. That's what happened to the 49ers last year. Mm-hmm. That was crushing, right? Losing in overtime. Or you can just be embarrassed out of the stadium in a way that, your tail's in between your legs and you're never going to come back.
Humiliated.
And the Chiefs are going to have to prove that didn't happen to them tonight. They have a lot to prove going into next year.
They've definitely fallen.
I just bring this back over and over and over again. They weren't that good this year. And it was it showed up today. So I think they have a big mountain to overcome. And hey, they did not get the 3-peat. So
they're going to have to look in the mirror and ask themselves, all the games that they won in the regular season, were they really that good? Was it all an illusion?
I think,
because they're also aware that there are a lot of fans out there that think that they're getting,
preferential treatment or
exactly. Yeah. Treatment. No, there are. Yeah. Because some of them have even clapped back to we've seen some of the Chiefs players, clap back on Twitter, like, hey, that's not true. And it's like,
Today did not help their argument. We'll put it that way.
It did not.
Mike talking about Tart dropping the Stafford and INT might have been the best shot at winning the Super Bowl for the 49ers. You were at that game over in SoFi. That was brutal for San Francisco.
That was brutal. That was the NFC Championship.
All right, we've got some super chats.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go here with Brian. Margot delivering the facts. Thanks to Sonia for your super chat as well. And this one right here, Mahomes' worst adjusted EPA quarterback performance in Super Bowl history. Was it? I don't know if I have that number yet. Mike has been sending me some stats, so I'll look to see if it was. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was. I mean, the first half definitely was. What we saw from the first half was absolutely atrocious.
On the Chiefs' part,
Patrick Mahomes. Let me see some of the stats here that Mike sent me. Jalen Hurts finished with the highest EPA per drop back for a quarterback in a Super Bowl since 2000.
Good for him.
That's awesome. Good for Jalen Hurts. And then the Eagles played zone coverage on all but 2 dropbacks, specifically cover 4, the 3rd highest rate by defense in a game since 2018. Vic Fangio's defense playing zone held Mahomes to his 2nd worst performance by EPA per game in his entire career. So Vic Fangio, let me give Vic Fangio some love here. Let's get him up on the screen. Vic Fangio playing a lot of zone. We know Robert Saleh, 49ers new defensive coordinator, is going to run a lot of zone. The kryptonite of the 49ers had been man coverage because their guys couldn't get open, which is why we just talked about Deebo Samuel getting traded or cut because they need guys who can get open against man coverage. Zone coverage seems to be the kryptonite against Patrick Mahomes. So just to give you an idea, expected points is this formula that looks at every single down. It's a sophisticated way of looking at effectiveness. Patrick Mahomes today, his expected points, minus 19.3. Negative 3 touchdowns in value.
Yikes.
2nd worst game of his career.
What was the first worst game of his career?
I don't know. I wish I knew. Mike, if you could find out the worst game of Patrick Mahomes' career, we'll be very, very grateful.
Wow. What I'm interested in is how many teams, back in their own headquarters, back at their own organizations, how many NFL teams and players are going to go watch this Super Bowl and then strategically figure out how to completely dismantle the Chiefs? I mean, if you're Andy Reid, like you've got to figure out what happened. I mean, what happened? What went wrong on their side?
And I think that every single team is going to look at that and say, oh boy, Philadelphia is really good on offensive line. Philadelphia is really good on defensive line. We have to make sure that we can compete with Philadelphia up front. I think that's my quick takeaway. Now, there's so much that goes into this. Here's a comment saying, trade Deebo for Devontae Adams so the 49ers can win at Levi's. I don't think that the 49ers would be able to execute a trade like that. I don't like the numbers wouldn't line up. In all likelihood, both of those guys, or at least Deebo, probably is going to get cut. We'll see. Maybe the 49ers will have to eat some salary. But maybe there will be a swap. Like, in effect, maybe Deebo will leave the 49ers and Devontae Adams will come to the 49ers. I don't know. Probably not likely. But, yes, I think Devontae Adams, we were talking about it on the chairlift today, better fit with Brock Purdy than Deebo Samuel's, the type of receiver that he is.
Yes.
It's like agility that you want instead of the bulldozer type. So we're going to take a couple more. We're creeping up on 49 minutes. We wanted to go for a little bit less than an hour. So we've got a few more of the super chats coming in. Do I think that sports analysts are going to be claiming that Sirianni is better than Shanahan? Probably. I mean, Sirianni won a Super Bowl. And some of these discussions are just so ridiculous. But so much has to go into winning a Super Bowl. What do you think about Sirianni?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can we kind of like rewind for a second and go back to the beginning of the regular season this year? Weren't the Eagles kind of like puttering along?
Yes.
I mean, they had this super slow start. They were not doing well. And didn't Sirianni have to go give a PowerPoint presentation to his boss on why he should not be fired? It
is rumored that Nick Sirianni had to save himself from getting fired with a PowerPoint presentation. He had to fire both of his coordinators. They had an inept coaching staff last year. They couldn't pick up a blitz.
They were like building that plane as in the air and dismantling it and replacing it with different parts.
Yes, and then they brought in Vic Fangio, who we just talked about.
Yeah.
The defense went from the worst in the league, number 30, one of the worst, to one of the best.
Yep.
So give Sirianni credit for overseeing what happened, but he wasn't the one doing the scheming. He was sitting there being the rah-rah guy, and maybe he learned how to restrain himself a little bit and not be as big of a
not be foaming at the mouth all the time.
This guy is more humble. He was humbled by last season. This guy just learned humility.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes without saying.
So then whether or not he's better than Shanahan, well, he's won more Super Bowls than Shanahan. He has that, but so much more goes into winning a Super Bowl than just, he's a great coach. Andy Reid is a really good coach. He didn't win one until his 21st season in the league.
Wow.
He came close with the Eagles. They fired him.
Yeah.
So a couple things go wrong for Nick Sirianni. They narrowly got by the Rams.
Okay, so that's really crazy. I didn't realize that. So Andy Reid was a coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, but then Sirianni also got his start at the Kansas City Chiefs.
Did he?
So yeah, so both head coaches had time, on the opposing team.
That's really neat.
That's cool. I wonder how that happens.
Packers rivalry in the 90s when Mariucci was with Green Bay before and Mike Holmgren was with the 49ers before then.
Yeah, same.
A lot of time you'll see, you weren't even born yet. You were. You were very young.
I'm 93, okay?
You're very young. You're the only person, you don't look like your age. You look younger.
Careful.
Yeah. You don't look your age. But you're the only person that likes to age herself on these shows. You're like,
I don't care.
I'm older than that. Come on.
I'm not cool enough to be Gen Z. I don't identify with that generation. I'm really, the little Lizzie McGuire animated character in my head is actually like a little 70-year-old grandma.
Look at Mike in 1993. Same. That's what he said.
Yeah, Mike.
93.
90s babies.
Niners lost to the Cowboys in that 93 NFC Championship game, which that's like my first memory. My dad was yelling at the TV, and I don't remember it all that well, but I know that the Cowboys beat the 49ers, and then the Niners won the next year, the Super Bowl. And they have not won since. Literally, they haven't won since. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
It's absolutely nuts. All right, a couple more. Do you see any good ones? I know this is tough.
What do we think about the Super Bowl next year at Levi's? Super Bowl 60.
Super Bowl 60 at Levi's next year. I'm excited for it. I think the Niners have a chance. I think that they need to follow the Philadelphia blueprint. Now, the Eagles are going to deal with the challenge the Niners have dealt with in recent years, and that they've played a ton of games. It's February 9th. Their season just ended. 49ers have been at home licking their wounds for over a month. Those teams have an advantage, the teams that have more rest. So it's tough to defend your title. But I think the Niners and Eagles, we might see that in the playoffs next year. Christian McCaffrey is going to be healthy. That's going to be big. But they're already installing new video boards at Levi's Stadium.
Ooh, someone said
Bills.
Niners. That's exactly what I saw. I just jumped on it like a grenade. That sounds so fun.
Look, 2 guys in a row.
Yeah.
Jeff says that right.
It's amazing.
Eagles are super. Yeah, well, the Eagles just blew out the Chiefs. So, of course, they're going to be Super Bowl favorites to start. But
yeah,
there's going to be a lot of time between now and then. Eagles are going to lose their offensive coordinator to the Saints. He's going to be their head coach, Kellen Moore.
Man.
So the brain drain, it's always
Saints.
Something we have Chris was asked the question, which 49er gets a new deal first? George Kittle. I think that one is the no-brainer. I think that one is going to happen.
I want
the extension.
I want Juwan Jennings to get.
Yeah, you could also extend Juwan this offseason.
He deserves an extension.
He's entering another lane because he signed a 2-year deal.
I mean, you talk about a guy who's no fuss, no drama, and goes out there and gives it 200%. My gosh, he should get paid.
I think that's going to be fascinating because he was a 1,000-yard receiver for all intents and purposes.
Essentially, yeah, because they revoked that call that ejected him.
They didn't revoke
it. Or no, they didn't revoke it, but didn't they go back and admit that it was a mistake?
Yeah, but he still couldn't get his 1,000 yards. It didn't.
Yeah,
didn't
no,
change
it was terrible.
In my heart, Juwan Jennings was a 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah. What about the? You want to talk about the schedule next season? I mean, I think it's the AFC South or something. The rotation this year it was the NFC North. And so the Niners had to play the Vikings, the Packers, the Bears.
Titans, the Texans.
And the AFC South is like a cupcake league.
And they've got a last place schedule, which is really cool. So last place schedule.
Should pay the way.
A lot of rest. AFC South, not a great division.
Hopefully no injuries.
People are saying the 49ers need DeForest Buckner back. I don't know if they can do that because he's still under contract with the Colts for a couple of years ago. So It's for a couple of years. So we could talk about all the free agents that you want to talk about, but talking about guys under contract with other teams, unless they've like demanded a trade like Myles Garrett, you just feel that you could talk yourself into your blue in the face, right? About guys that are under contract.
You should talk a little bit about the build your own 49ers roster, since we are officially.
Yeah, I got to make that, but that's coming up. I'm going to have it's going to come out on the San Francisco Standard.
You should give people a heads up if they haven't heard what it is.
Build your own 49ers roster. I've done it with Athletic over the past few years.
So
now with the Standard, it's going to move over there. You're going to have a chance to build your 49ers team under the hood of the salary cap with free agent signings, trades, you name it. Hopeful, and salaries will all be in there. Cap hits will be in there, so you'll be able to build.
So it's like a big math problem
that can go to Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara.
Yeah. Super fun.
They'll call it San Francisco Super Bowl 60.
I helped you build that.
You did. You're great with the you're a really good skier. Holy crap, you're a good skier. I knew that, but it was reinforced in my head. You improved after not skiing for 2 years. You're like I can't call you Patrick Mahomes of skiing because you're actually good at it. Unlike Patrick Mahomes playing football today. But you were awesome today. And then also when I was first building the spreadsheet for build your own roster,
that was 2021.
You might as well put your name on it. It was really good.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you. That's really sweet.
Jacqueline says hi. Hello.
Hello.
You spelled Margot's name wrong, but that's okay, Jacqueline.
That's fine. I'm Margo. No T. What you see is what you get. No hidden letters.
Do I think the 49ers should draft a top wide receiver with Debo leaving? They did last year. They used the first-round pick on a guy named
Ricky Pearsall.
Ricky Pearsall, yes. So that was the plan. We didn't expect Debo and Brandon Ayuk to both stay with the team for 2 more years, and it's looking like that indeed is going to come to fruition. I think it's just been slow played a little bit, but that's just how it is.
Maybe we can just draft a Clydesdale.
And then you would definitely have a touchdown. Nobody would be able to tackle the Clydesdale. But I don't know. I would question the Clydesdale's ball security. How is he going to hold the football?
They're clever animals. We'll figure it out.
I don't see any place for that Clydesdale.
They played football in that one commercial a million years ago.
And just like teams who play the Chiefs, they had trouble with the zebras.
Yes.
That was the best.
That was the best. That's probably top 1, if not top 2, top 3 Budweiser commercial of all time.
I wouldn't say that the 49ers don't need another wide receiver. They're going to have to add somebody. They could use somebody else, but I don't think that the cost benefit is going to, justify itself. Yeah. So that's why Devontae Adams, I'll talk about it when he says he wants to play for the 49ers, which seems like he did.
So that's a new thing too. A lot of these NFL players saying, I want to play for fill in the blank team here.
The best players have been able to force their ways to force their way to spots. That happens a lot in the NBA, the league where guys are called by their first name.
Yep.
So the NFL is turning on, the NFL has always been a little bit more team focused because the owners and the CBA has been team friendly. The NBA has been more player focused. And I think it comes down to, in the NFL, guys' helmets are shielding a lot of their face. So it's much easier to build a personal brand in basketball.
That makes sense. Yeah. It's also, basketball is also a much more intimate sport. I mean, you can sit on the front row and have the players sweat on you.
And the rosters are small too.
Yeah, and they're a lot smaller versus football. It's this huge production. These stadiums are massive. I mean, the players are kind of far away.
So the contractual realities of the sport have reflected what we're seeing on the court or on the field. And basketball players have traditionally been able to force their way to places. In football, it's been the quarterbacks who have been able to do that. And because they're the ones that are at the very top of the totem pole. But they
have the most visibility too.
If I sit up higher, my head's going to be off the
screen. No.
That's the problem. So that's why I'm like, sit a little lower. You're getting taller.
Sorry. You told me that stop slumping.
Well, what are you? Well, I think you just gotten off a flight.
I had literally gotten off of a flight and I looked like this 70-year-old grandma, shuffling off, and you just looked at me and you said, please stand up straight.
Yeah, I was like, hey, let's
and so naturally I just started making gollop noises at him, as one does.
I didn't.
Yeah, I was like, my precious.
Oh yeah. But anyway, you're standing up or sitting up straight now.
Yeah.
I am sitting up straight, but I'm kind of leaning back to fit on the screen. I'm 6'5", and what are you, 5'11"? So
yes.
Right now it looks like we're only a couple inches apart, but it's all good.
I won't tell. Don't worry.
Chris, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
Do you want to open up any more questions?
I'm looking right now.
Yeah.
Do you see any?
No, I don't see any.
Will the Eagles' defensive tackles making an impact today? Do you think this will motivate the Niners to try to draft Mason Graham by trading up from number 11? Mason Graham out of Michigan, really good defensive tackle. Let me tell you something, and I tweeted this, so I'm just going to read my tweet. This is the circle of life in the NFL. The first time the Shanahan 49ers went to the Super Bowl, they followed that with a 6-win season. Okay? 2019, next season was a disaster for the 49ers. During that 6-win season, the Chiefs returned to the Super Bowl the next year and were blown out. They were overwhelmed in the trenches. I think the 49ers watched. I think they saw their own experience when they won only 6 games in 2020. And what they did is they responded with a big offseason of offensive line and defensive line investment. What happened after that is the 49ers hit 3 straight seasons in which they reached at least the NFC title game. They reached the Super Bowl in one of them last year. And then it went back to square one last season. They lost to the Chiefs, and they followed it with a 6-win season. So, yes, to answer your question, I think they do what has been very clear needs to be done. Their defense dropped down to the bottom of the league. Their offense really struggled to protect on the interior at crucial moments. I think that they go and they invest in the front, and part of that investment may be Mason Graham. I don't know if they're going to trade up for him, but they will invest in the offensive line and the defensive line this offseason.
Well, and the big coaching changes too are going to be telling.
They've already made the coaching changes, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm saying, like, we talk about, okay, it's a new year, there's guys that are rolling off or moving to other teams. There's new guys coming onto the team, whether they're veterans or whether they're from the draft. But you also have the added layer of like newer coaching staff too, which is not something that happens every year.
The Eagles remind me of what the 49ers did to slay Dallas in the 90s. They built a strong D-line with Dana Stubblefield and Bryant Young. That's a good call-out. They drafted Bryant Young in 94. They also signed Deion Sanders. They also signed a new center, Bart Oates. Mm-hmm. So the 94 Niners, look at that team. Do what the 94 Niners did when they won the Super Bowl 30 years ago, and maybe you'll get over the hump if you're the 49ers. Daniel Garcia wants O-line and D-line via draft and free agency. Well, that's the only place you're going to be able to get them. I don't know if there's any other player acquisition.
I can't remember if it was the O-line or the D-line, but I think it was the offensive line for the Eagles. They showed the average height and weight of those players, and the average height was 6'6", and the average weight was 338 pounds. That's insane.
And they were showing the comparison to Super Bowl I.
And it was like
645.
Yeah, it was like 245 or
6'3",
225, and
6'3".
like 6'3" was the average.
And the Eagles, I think that was the biggest offensive line in Super Bowl history.
Yeah,
today. So
clearly, I mean, they did their jobs.
What's really interesting to me is that in general, the NFL over the past decade has downsized a little bit. The lines have gotten smaller and faster. Every time that somebody zigs down the league, there's going to be a team that zags. Mm-hmm. So the Eagles are now, if everybody's getting smaller and faster, why don't we just beat the crap out of everybody by getting the biggest offensive line that's ever been in the Super Bowl?
Just literally squash them.
So this is how it works, Margo. Like, team does this, dominates Super Bowl. What are the other teams going to do to step up and challenge the Eagles?
Get out of the way.
Yeah. Or
they're going to move.
Or puff your chest out. Josh Sweat is a free agent. He's one of the Eagles' defensive linemen. He was big today. He was good. Obviously, they're losing Kellen Moore, their offensive coordinator for the Saints. We've gone over an hour.
Yeah, I think we've done great.
Hold your mic up. They're not going to hear you.
I think, we have. We've been out here.
You ready to go?
Yeah. Anything else we should talk about?
I think we got it all. It was a blowout. I think that we're just gonna.
I think this was I can't wait to see what the headlines are for some of the bigger news entities of just how they want to communicate this to the wider public. But to me, this was such an exposure of don't ever my dad always says, he's like, don't ever confuse luck with intelligence. Well, I think that's
This was beyond luck.
This was beyond luck.
Today.
I mean, I think the Chiefs.
No doubt.
I think the Chiefs were riding a huge wave of luck all season long, and I think it just came crumbling down in the most humiliating fashion tonight.
It did. I think that's the way to look at it. I mean, they had 1 first down in the first half. They were down 34-0. They averaged a loss every single time Patrick Mahomes dropped back. They will never be the Montana Niners. They will never be the Brady Patriots. They'll never even be the Brady Buccaneers who beat them. Like, this is extremely damaging to the Chiefs, no matter what happens. Maybe they could win another Super Bowl moving forward, but they'll still be the team that gained 1 first down in the first half and was down 34-0 in a Super Bowl. This, at the very least, leaves a severe dent in their legacy. And then the Eagles, they're the team to beat. Congratulations to Philadelphia. You know, we should say
repping the NFC.
Anthony Lombardi over in Philadelphia. We got to send him a message. Good guy. He runs Lombardi Meats. It's a butcher shop. This was me with him.
Yeah.
At the Eagles game. I'm going to show this up on the screen. Let's get this close to the camera. So Anthony Lombardi, just last name is unfortunately.
I don't think they're going to be able to see it.
Yeah. They get it really close up there. Yeah, that's a little bit closer. You can see the Eagles jerseys. I guess I can't show you right now. I wish I could. Put that. I'm going to put this up on the screen and send it to him. That's what I'm going to do. Because he deserves it. I mean, this is a good Eagles fan. And this was before the 49ers
by a good Eagles
them.
fan, you mean like ones that don't scale light poles
that are greased up now. I'm sure they.
Yeah, I'm sure all of the light poles in Philadelphia are covered in Crisco currently.
Okay, we have the picture. We're going to be able to get this up on the screen.
They really do that. They really do climb.
They do
public property
and
in celebration.
I'm sure the whole city is on fire right now.
Maybe not the whole city.
I mean,
maybe just a few couches.
One thing, they're passionate in Philadelphia. So,
oh yeah,
Anthony Lombardi over in Philly, no relation. He's over there. I believe the guy on the right is also a Lombardi. Forgot his name, but I know
no relation.
Yeah, Anthony is on the left. They invited me to check out the suite before the Niners played the Eagles last year. Good people over there. Congratulations to them on their Super Bowl. And I'm sure they're having a lot of fun. Hopefully the shop does a lot of business tomorrow. So congratulations to the unrelated Lombardis from the Lombardis here in Shaver Lake in California.
Yep.
All right, for Margot, this is David. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.